Well, many blessings to all of you. I hope that you're doing wonderful. And every once in a while, at least once a week, I like to step aside from the mystery teachings to talk a little bit about healing or sharing of healing, right? And was really inspired to take some time to do a little share on the hidden secrets that exist primarily, believe it or not, in a healing journey or a spiritual journey. And why I'm highlighting that aspect is because if we're not spiritually awakened or on that journey, we may not even notice that we have hidden secrets. And if we do, um, it's just part of what, what we're doing, right? But when we're on a spiritual journey and we start to have awareness, that soul aspect of us starts to speak to us, and we find ourselves at times in this place of conflict because we're beginning the path or we're on the path, and yet we also recognize that we have these emotional secrets, these feelings that we're still working on or struggling with, and we could actually experience conflict um, because we realize that we're striving to grow, to heal, and to evolve, and yet there's these blockages, these unresolved emotions that are still part of us, right? And it's interesting and it's also very revealing because that could become very conflicting, and it could actually perpetuate us to feel that we're not being authentic, that we're lying, that there's a big secret, hidden within ourselves, and that we're phony because we may be on this journey, we may be working with someone, a teacher, say, or be part of a group, a tribe, um, and we're doing this work. We may be, you know, learning a practice, a healing modality, and as I said again, that's all, that's wonderful, and yet there's these little secrets, these little compartments of blockages that may exist within us that almost make us feel like we're betraying ourselves because if we're on this healing path, then we shouldn't have these little secrets that torment us or that put us under scrutiny, right? On an emotional level, on a spiritual level, right? So, what am I talking about? Right? And again, it's these feelings that, whether we realize it or not, are still part of the lower self that perhaps we've addressed and are still in the process of addressing these emotional blockages. Maybe we have addressed them and have not been successful in getting to that next level, right? So let's take a moment and talk about what those hidden secrets could be, unworthiness, right? And again, I'm sort of focusing primarily, although anyone can benefit from the share, but primarily on those who are walking on the path, who are striving uh, to be on that journey and yet find themselves struggling with these emotional blockages, and feeling conflicted, right? When we are feeling unworthy, right, it becomes a secret at times because we're not going to admit to anyone, that I feel unworthy, that I feel less than. Um, and so it becomes a secret. And, on the exterior, we may be putting our best you know, our best efforts forward to to validate to ourselves and others that we do feel worthy, right? That we have the divine right to to speak about a subject, to partake in a subject, to teach, say, a subject. And yet there's this inner conflict, this secret that am I really supposed to be helping or trying to teach others when I don't feel worthy myself of my, of who I am, right? So unworthiness is a big one, right? Uh, Comparison, comparing ourselves to others, um, is another big emotional secret, right? Not feeling that you're good enough, that others know more than you do, that you're never going to reach these levels where, you know, you wish you could be, or that you admire in others who are confident or or having the success of being able to have a following or to have students, and almost using that against yourself, that you are not feeling worthy, so you feel that you're less than, and there's a comparison that could go on, a sense of jealousy, that you're not at that place, right? A secret. And a very big one that exists is the secret of shame, you know, of feeling that there is something that we've partaken in, whether it's in the past, probably still in the present, um, that innately we know uh, doesn't feel right, but it's become part of our makeup, through conditioning, uh, through not feeling whole, right? And it becomes a secret because it's still part of us, but we're also, walking on this journey and probably doing some great work. And yet it's a sense of betrayal to the self, because hidden in there, there's these feelings that we know uh, that do not make us feel like we're being authentic, right? And so we block that and we hold it, believe it or not. So I'm going to give some examples because I know I'm sort of being general, right? Uh, but I'm going to just use a few of what these emotional blockages may look like, right? And generally, like I said, using examples, but we could feel ashamed of binge eating, right? Of And it does happen actually, where through not feeling emotionally at ease, knowing that there's something that's eating at us, right, becomes then an eating disorder, can become an eating disorder, whether it's that we're binging to fill something, right? It's not actually the food, but it's what we're looking to fill that really is the root cause, right? And then we become ashamed of that. There are people who experience binge eating and they actually hide food in, secret places, because can become sort of a habitual, almost compulsion. And they're ashamed of it. They're ashamed that they have to binge eat, right? And they may be ridiculed for binge eating from their loved ones, family, friends. It doesn't really matter because there's no secret, right? It seems like a secret, but you're actually your greatest judge. There's a sense of shame that comes when you know that that you're being sort of pulled to binge eat, say, because it's trying to fill something in you, right? So it becomes this big secret, right? There's other people who may not binge eat, but may shop a lot, right? I don't want to necessarily say shopaholics, but who deal with an issue of overspending or over shopping for things that are insignificant, unnecessary, but they tend to have almost like a compulsion to shop. And once again, there's a deep sense of shame that may come with that. Do I really need this? Do I really need to spend this? Like, why am I buying these things that are over the top, right? And this feeling, this secret of knowing that you're doing this and not knowing why you feel like you need to do this, and the sense of shame that comes with that, right? And the symptoms of shame are so expansive, hoarding, a need to hoarder, um, which is accompanied by a deep sense of shame, um, that we need to hoard, whether it's clothing, whether it's objects, mementos, whatever it is, books. There's a sense of knowing that we're overindulging in something that doesn't feel right, right? Gambling, right, is another one. Sexual engagement, right? Pornography, self-pleasure, And again, these things that I'm talking about are over the top things, because at one point or another, we sort of tend to, whether when we're young, to start exploring in certain activities that we, with time, sort of like find a balance or sort of outgrow, right? But these are symptoms, right, that sort of not only stay with us, but actually can become uh, sort of like a compulsion, like this deep need to engage in these activities that we know are hurting us. And how do we know that they're hurting us? Because we don't feel right about them, right? We don't feel good about them. And we start to then experience this deep sense of shame that there's something that we're hiding, right? That doesn't feel right. And that's where it can become really destructive and counterproductive because we feel like we're being phony to ourselves, and again, how this really operates is that we're not really telling anyone this, it's a deep, dark secret that is hidden within ourselves, right? As we're on the exterior, uh, looking like, we're okay or doing, we're moving along our journey. But we know. And that's where the subject of this show really is, are we really helping ourselves, right? If there are these deep, dark secrets, emotional deep, dark secrets that we're holding in place, right, within ourselves, well, what happens with that? And what happens is that there's a sense of shame, of unworthiness, and really the root cause of that is a lack of self-love, right? If we have a need to engage in anything that's not gonna ultimately make us feel good, then that is deriving from a deep sense of lack of self-love, right? That really then becomes the root cause. The activities or the activity then becomes the symptom, you know, but we're so focused on the awareness then that we are partaking in this activity, that instead of realizing that the activities are part of a symptom, right? We go into this deep feeling of feeling ashamed, right? Feeling ashamed, of feeling that that we're really lying to ourselves, right? And so what we need to do, what we should do is to go back to the original root cause of the symptoms, right? And again, in this case, the symptoms could be hoarding, could be over shopping, could be overeating, could be engaging in sexual activities, right? That don't make us feel good. And the root cause now is not feeling self-love, not feeling worthy, right? And really what's occurring is that the symptom then becomes something that we feel, that we're trying to feel, right? In order to feel better. We think that by engaging in these activities, we're going to feel better, right? It's trying to fill a hole, right? And or avoid, right? A fragmentation. And where does that fragmentation derive from? From a trauma, that trauma, almost like the spectrum, being on the spectrum, it could be a reasonable trauma, it could be a very big trauma, right? Depending on the extent of how that trauma was experienced, right? But we're going to call it for this share that there's been a fragmentation through our childhood, through something that occurred, early on, and it could even be as a young adult where all of a sudden we've experienced this trauma that has now caused fragmentation. I love to use analogies. So, when we think of like a hairline fracture, right? We're aware that it exists, right? And we need to mend, right, that hairline fracture, because if we don't, it's going to perpetuate. We may need to have surgery, right? We're not going to be able to walk properly. We're going to be in pain. And so something similar happens when we are experiencing a fragmentation of the soul, right? That something has a tear, and that tear could have evolved from an experience that created trauma. And if we don't address it, it's going to just perpetuate, right? And so where do these fragments come from? Like I said, they can come from childhood. They could come from a self-belief that we're not good enough, right? We hear that a lot in our childhood, right? Where we're not the perfect player, we don't play sports, we're not, great in the gym, right? We may not be very creative and we're made fun of, right? We feel different. People make fun of us, bullying, right? And so those, uh, those ridicules hurt. They hurt. And whether we realize it or not, we begin to allow those feelings that are being thrown at us or that we are feeling within ourselves to become us, to identify. They become the identification of who you are to yourself. And so, and we don't want to feel that. Who wants to feel inferior or not as good, right? Not as tall, not as skinny, or right. So we don't want to feel that way, but there is that presence within ourselves, those feelings, because we personalize them, and that's what we do when we're young, right? To identify us. And we want to escape then from that pain, from that rejection or that making fun of, right? Of not fitting in. And so, but we feel that we need to escape from it because it's too painful to look at it, to look at those feelings within ourselves, and to feel that those ugly feelings identify us. And so what we do instead is that we escape from that fear and apply it to something else. It's called an escape, right? We escape and we replace it with something else, and then that something could be anything, right? That then becomes the go-to place in order to not look at the real root cause feeling of what needs to be healed, of what needs to be healed, right? Um, this happens, beloveds, so much in our world, right? And what really uh, needs to be addressed is that it becomes a secret. You know, it's not it the escape of the activities to run away from the fragmentation is so deeply embedded that that we don't talk about it. You know, we're ashamed. This is where the shame comes. We're ashamed to talk about it. We don't want anyone to see uh, the symptoms of the activities that we run and escape to because we're really fragmented from something deeper that hurts, right? And so we make believe, we suppress it. Um, we feel fake about it, and it's so destructive because at the end of the day, we can't run away from ourselves. As much as we say that we're okay, and we're not talking about these activities, these symptoms, we know that they exist, and it can be perpetual because we don't know how to begin to heal that fragmented places that we're in. So much easier than, although very painful, to then escape into the activities that seemingly feel like we're filling in the gap, right? Of the fragmentation, right? And so, how do we go about healing that, right? Um, we need to go to a place of recognizing that the fragmentation is part of us, right? And why I say that is because there's an illusionary separation that begins to happen when we are, say, engaging in a symptom. And again, whether it's gambling, overeating, pornography, hoarding, right? That sense of shame, right, uh, is a feeling that almost gives the illusion that we're separate then. And what I mean by that is we don't want to look at that part of us. They're like this ugly person that we're so ashamed of that we don't want to look at them. We hate them. We despise them. We're ashamed of them, right? And so if we are on the spiritual journey, which means that, we're trying to heal ourselves on other areas, right? Meditating and learning perhaps a vocation, and right? And yet those symptoms of that escape and those activities still exist, then it's like we're lying to ourselves, right? So no matter how much effort then we're trying to place in trying to do the right thing, like to grow and evolve and expand, these secrets are like deeply embedded and they feel like they're betraying us, like we're really lying to ourselves. And so the first thing that we need to recognize, and it's really a very important part of this process, is that there is no separation between that lower self that has been fragmented, that has experienced fragmentation through emotional fragmentation, um, that it's not a separate person from you. That you are a whole essence. you know, the beautiful parts of you, the evolving parts of you, and the not so pretty parts of you, the shadow parts of you, the part of you who has been fragmented and led to, you know, uh, shameful activities, to try to hide, or escape from the origination of that fragmentation, or those fragmentations that happen in our emotional state. We need to we need to have the courage to look at the whole you, right? Like I said, the broken parts, the fragmented parts, and the parts that hopefully are also healing. And instead of creating an illusionary separation, like that's not me, or there's a hidden part of me that I don't want anyone. That's fragmentation itself. It's a separation from you. Is to be able to courageously embrace and look at every part of you, right? And as you're doing that reflection of looking at yourself, to recognize that somewhere you experienced an emotional fragment, right? And that the only way that fragment is going to heal is through a healing process of your whole acceptance, right? It is there that you will be able to see the root cause instead of escaping from it of what may have occurred that created such an emotional injury. And then instead of escaping from it through other activities, is to allow yourself to go through the healing process, to know that this occurred and that, yes, it was painful, but that the solution is not to run away from it, but to embrace it, to be able to accept it, and to be able to accept that process, that trauma, from a place of unconditional love, right? To not judge yourself, to be ashamed of yourself because of this occurrence, but more so to know that it happened because it had to happen as a part of you. And where you go in the process of recognizing that it has happened or did happen is, where are you going to go next with it? Are you going to remain in a place of escape, of being ashamed, of hiding an aspect of yourself, right, which will never let you feel whole? Or are you going to choose to take a proactive stance and try and begin the process of healing that? And that can only happen when you allow yourself unconditional love and self-acceptance of all that you have been. Yes, right? Uh, and so I feel that it's such a vast subject because we don't really talk about the lower aspects of ourselves that are feeling fragmented and ashamed, right? And as we cannot complete or get to a higher place, no matter what we do around it, as long as we are secretly holding judgment, sense of unworthiness, or shame for something that is a part of us, right? So we need to learn that it is not separate from you, that it is still a part of you, and that what that fragmentation is looking for is for your unconditional acceptance uh, and unconditional love so that the mending process can take place, right? Of course, uh, as we speak so much about fragmentation, I have to include, of course, that I am an elder shaman and that, you know, one of the greatest gifts that we have in shamanism, in the advanced teachings of shamanism, is that so many souls experience soul fragmentation. And as I said earlier, the degree, the spectrum of what that soul fragmentation or soul fragmentation experiences can be vary in degree, almost like the spectrum. It could be a 1, it could be a 5, or it could be a 10. And the unfortunate part is that many of these experiences are not readily discussed or treated, mended on a allopathic uh, counseling or psychology or even psychiatric level. You know, um, Many people seem to not be able to find, the reconciliation, the remedy to helping themselves in dealing with these issues, right? And so where shamanism becomes an incredible gift is that in advanced shamanism, we the shaman learns about fragmentation and how to help souls in soul retrievals. Of course, as an elder, that word is used these days very loosely. That you could be a shaman, so you can help with soul retrievals and fragmentation, and it's a very delicate area where there should be a lot of reverence and experience applied, because we can actually further traumatize a soul if we don't know what we're doing. But on that higher level of shamanism, many a times, and I've been a humble witness to this, that through the practice of soul retrieval and soul fragmentation, many souls have been assisted to be brought back to a place of wholeness through this mending process, right? And so it is a vast subject, but I felt in today's healing share that I felt that if this was of any resonation, if it spoke to you or if it spoke to someone that um, that there is, that we're not stuck with these feelings, that we don't have to feel uh, fragmented with these secrets that we deeply hold in our subconscious, in our soul, in our energy field, right? And that, of course, um, if we're called to work with someone as myself or a shaman of experience, that would be a wonderful thing. But that you can take a proactive stance today by beginning to not run away from yourself, escape. If you can identify anything that I've shared today, and instead to have the courage to confront that aspect of yourself. And that confrontation should be done so unconditionally, so full of compassion, of self love, to recognize that you perhaps are ready to bring into wholeness all the aspects of you, you know, not only the ones that, on the exterior look nice, but the real deep secrets that you feel that you are not sharing, or that you're hiding from everyone. Because the truth is, you're not fooling anyone if you are feeling these feelings, because you know the truth. And that truth can be enough to stop you dead on your tracks on your spiritual journey, um, because there's great conflict and a feeling of self-betrayal that you're not being true to yourself, right? By having these little deep, dark secrets that can be detrimental, not only to your well-being, but also to your path, right? And so I hope that that helps today, that it speaks to you, like I said, that if you can resonate with some of the things that I've shared, that you can go on a self-exploration. Of course, you always know how to find me. Um, if there's something that deeply spoke to you, I'm always on you could always find me on my website, uh, or, shoot me a comment, that I can respond back to, right? And I want to just really say that today's subject is one that I know speaks to many. Um, and so if you know someone, or if you feel that this video was important, please take a moment to share. You can take a moment to just take the link from this video and share, just put it out, you know, out there, because I know that this subject is a delicate subject that speaks to many, but that no one speaks about, right? And so maybe you could be a conduit for someone who's dealing with these feelings of shame or unworthiness, and maybe you could be the inspiration to help them begin into the step into the reconciliation process, and to ultimately their healing, right? And so, of course, again, love to hear your comments. I hope that you're enjoying. I love to hear what your thoughts are. And of course, I can't stress enough, I repeat this all the time, I love that you guys come to see the videos. I can see the viewership, but please take a moment to subscribe and to like the video. Um, you have no idea how the positioning of the videos, which ultimately lead to more viewership of people finding the videos, can help when the numbers of subscriptions and of the likes are reciprocated after someone sees a video, because it actually changes the positioning of the videos, which in turn help people find the videos, right? And at the end of the day, uh, all that I put out is for you guys, right? To hopefully be helping, being of service in some way. So you can return that back by liking the video and subscribing if you haven't, or if you feel that the channel is giving you something, to invite others to subscribe to the channel and to explore it as well. Yes? It was wonderful connecting with you. Of course, I will be back, and if there is a subject matter in the spiritual realm or the mystery teachings that you wish for me to cover, just drop me an email or a comment, and I will definitely keep that, in the forefront of a future video. And of course, until then, always, always leave you with my love, with my light, and with my peace. I hope that you have an amazing, beautiful day, and a day of reconciliation and of divine healing today. Yes? I love you guys.